My husband's work wife bought the house next door. She just announced she's pregnant, and it's when my husband Derek told me his coworker Lisa was buying the house next to ours, I thought it was just a weird coincidence. They worked at the same marketing firm downtown, and our neighborhood was popular with young professionals. Lisa was single, in her early 30s, and Derek always talked about her like she was his office best friend. The house had been on the market for months, and honestly, I was relieved someone normal would be moving in. Our previous neighbors were elderly and kept to themselves, so having someone friendly next door seemed like it would be nice. Lisa moved in on a Saturday in March, and Derek spent the entire day helping her. I was at my sister's baby shower, so I didn't think much of it. When I got home around 6, Derek was still over there assembling furniture and hanging pictures. I could hear them laughing through the thin walls between our houses. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing how often Derek would pop over to Lisa's place. He'd say he was borrowing tools or checking on something he'd helped install. Sometimes I'd see him through our bedroom window, sitting on her back porch with a beer, talking until late in the evening. When I mentioned it, Derek said Lisa was having trouble adjusting to home ownership and needed guidance. He'd been through the process before, so he was helping her navigate repairs and maintenance issues. It made sense, and I appreciated that my husband was being neighborly. But then I started noticing other things that felt off. Derek would get texts during dinner and immediately start smiling. He'd check his phone constantly when we were watching TV together. When I asked who was texting, he'd always say it was work stuff or Lisa asking questions about the house. In April, Derek started working late more often. He'd call around 5 saying he was staying at the office to finish a project, but when I drove past his building at 7, his car wasn't in the parking lot. When I asked about it, he said he'd gone out for drinks with coworkers to discuss strategy. I also noticed Derek had started buying groceries I didn't recognize. Organic milk when we always bought regular. Expensive prenatal vitamins that appeared in our medicine cabinet. When I asked about the vitamins, Derek said his back had been bothering him and he'd heard they helped with joint pain. The weirdest thing was how Derek's schedule seemed to mirror Lisa's exactly. If she was out of town for work, Derek would work late those same days. If her car was in her driveway, Derek would find reasons to be home early. It felt too perfectly coordinated to be coincidental. In May, Lisa invited us over for a housewarming party. She looked different somehow, glowing in a way that seemed familiar. Derek was unusually attentive to her, bringing her water and making sure she was comfortable. He kept steering conversations away whenever people asked about her dating life. I started paying closer attention to their interactions after that. Derek would unconsciously touch Lisa's lower back when they walked together. She'd rest her hand on his arm when she laughed. They had this easy intimacy that seemed deeper than friendship, but I couldn't put my finger on exactly what was wrong. Last week, Lisa knocked on our door around noon. Derek wasn't home, which seemed to surprise her. She looked nervous and said she had important news to share with both of us. Could she come back when Derek was home? I told her Derek would be back around 6, and she said she'd return then. But instead of leaving, she stood on our porch for a moment, looking like she wanted to say something else. Finally, she asked if Derek had mentioned anything about her personal life recently. When I said no, her face fell slightly. She mumbled something about timing and walked back to her house. That evening, Lisa came over just as Derek was pulling into our driveway. She waited for him to park and get out, then approached us together. Her face was flushed with excitement, and she was practically bouncing on her toes. She announced she was 12 weeks pregnant and couldn't wait any longer to tell us. Derek's face went completely white, and I watched him grab onto our mailbox for support. Lisa continued talking, saying she'd been dying to share the news with her closest friends. That's when she looked directly at Derek and said the words that changed everything. And that's when I realized whose baby she was really carrying.